What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this quick conversation about some topics that I wanted to cover. First on the list is JayZ. So this past week, or maybe it was Sunday, there's this lawsuit that was been filed by this woman who I think up until now is still a Jane Doe. She hired attorney Tony Busby to represent her, and she initially had filed her lawsuit against Sean Combs, P. Diddy, alleging that P. Diddy had assaulted her when she was only 13 years old after the MTV Video Music Awards. Now she had amended her lawsuit to include Sean Carter as well for assaulting her. She claims some really horrific things were done to her that night. She claimed that one of them would hold her down while the other one assaulted her. Then they would switch and take turns, and that there was another person there witnessing all of this. She talked about how she was given a drink to make her feel, woozy and not able to control herself or to control her movements, so she couldn't fight back and she couldn't escape. And so these two men, would hold her down and take turns assaulting her. Some very horrific things that she's alleging. And obviously, Sean Carter or JayZ comes out with a statement immediately saying that these things didn't happen, that he is innocent of all of these accusations, and that this is just a money grab. And he basically called her attorney, Tony Busby, an ambulance chasing attorney. He accused the attorney of extorting him because Tony Busby had wanted to settle out of court, had written him a demand letter, wanted to settle out of court. And JayZ called that extortion. He said that he would never do this. And if these things did happen, then why wasn't he charged criminally? Well, he can't be charged criminally now because of the statute of limitations on these types of cases. He probably couldn't be charged criminally, or wasn't charged criminally then, because the victim probably felt like, who would believe her, 13 years old how did you end up at this adult party? There was a lot of victim blaming, back in the day, a lot of victim blaming, and nobody wanted to believe that their idols, the people that they celebrated, the rich and the famous would do things like this, back then. So I totally understand why she would want to file the lawsuit now. I mean, I get it. You feel like the person who harmed you, they need to be brought to justice. You want to be vindicated for these things that were done to you. And unfortunately, right now, the only course of action is a civil lawsuit. It can no longer be taken to criminal court. As I was filming this video, because this isn't the first time that I try to film this video, but in between one of my takes, an article popped up on my phone, and it said that Jane Doe, the accuser in all of this, it has come out that her story has some inconsistencies. So one of the inconsistencies is that in the lawsuit, she alleges that her father had picked her up after the assault. And her father had said previously that there was no way for him to have driven from Rochester, New York, all the way to Manhattan, which is like a 5-hour drive, to pick her up after this assault had taken place. So I guess the time frame that she claimed her dad would have picked her up, he would not have been there at this location by that time. And the father had said that he doesn't remember picking her up in Manhattan, and that something like that he definitely would have remembered if it happened. Another inconsistency that this article talked about is that I guess in her allegation or in her lawsuit, she claims that when she was taken to this after party where this assault had taken place, she had a conversation with Benji Madden, who is a part of, what group was he in? He had a twin brother. Oh, I can't remember the name of the group. But she said that she had a conversation with Benji Madden. And at that time, I guess it was proven later that Benji Madden was actually on tour. And he was not there because he was on tour. And another inconsistency in her story is that there were photos taken during that night of JayZ and Diddy, and these photos places them at a completely different location from where she claims the assault took place. And the description that she gave of where this assault took place does not match the description of where JayZ and Diddy were at, according to the photos that were taken of them that night. So these are the so-called consistencies in her lawsuit. Now, after the inconsistencies came out, her and her attorney are still standing firm that she was assaulted by JayZ and P. Diddy. She is still sticking to her claim that this assault did take place, even though she might have gotten some things wrong. Now, the problem with that, in my opinion, is that if you're going to accuse someone of something so heinous and your alleged accusers are people who are so powerful, you need to make sure that all of your T's are crossed and all of your I's are dotted. You don't play around, because these people have the money and the power to annihilate you if you come to them wrong, if you come at them wrong. So I have no idea. We'll have to see how this plays out through the legal system, through the courts. But I'm just reporting what I read in this article literally minutes before I started recording, that some of the things that she alleges, there's some inconsistencies there. Now, I find it's flabbergasting to me that someone would file a lawsuit against someone and accuse them of really horrible things, holding down a child while y'all are taking turns assaulting. I mean, this is horrible stuff, that you would accuse somebody of that without evidence to back it up. I'm not saying that she doesn't have evidence. I'm just saying that I find it like, how could you file something like this without having the evidence to back it up? Now, what evidence can you possibly have 20 years or almost 20 years later? What evidence could you have? And that an attorney who is as high profile as Busby will take on a case without something to back it up, because some people with money are going to play hardball with you. They're not just going to throw some money at you hoping that you go away and you don't talk about them anymore. They're going to play hardball with you. And I don't know if JayZ is the kind of person to do this, but it seems like that's the path that he's taking, is to play hardball with her. Now, a lot of people were saying that, how can JayZ issue a statement so quickly after the story came out that he was included in the lawsuit? And on one side, a person can say, well, maybe he came out with the story so quickly because these things really didn't happen. And he's just like shocked, and he's not going to let a minute go by without him being able to give his side of the story. Of course, some other people are saying that, he knew that this was going to happen. He knew that this was coming up. And so he had a statement ready, not because he's innocent, but because he's just ready to persuade public opinion that this girl is lying, that this young woman is lying. Like I said, we don't know. Us looking, from the outside looking in, we have no idea. We have to see how this is going to play out in court. But yeah, there are some inconsistencies in her story, according to this article that I read. Now, let's move on to my next topic of conversation. Let's talk about this woman named crystalmangum. Now, crystalmangum, back in 2006, worked as a stripper, and she was hired by the Duke lacrosse team for her services. And after she had completed her services, she went straight to the police department and accused 3 players of assaulting her. So charges were brought against these 3 lacrosse players, and I think they even went to trial, I believe. This was back in 2006. Now, crystalmangum is now coming out 20-something years, well, almost 20 years later, 2006, 2024. So about 18 years later, she is coming out now, almost 2 decades later, saying that she had completely made up the story. The story is not true. She made it up. It was all lies. And now she is asking for forgiveness for these false accusations against these young men. She can no longer be prosecuted for perjury because the statute of limitations has expired. The prosecutor of the lacrosse players had indicated back then that this assault was also racially motivated. The prosecutor, the head prosecutor, was Michael Nafong. So The prosecutor at the beginning of the case had promised that DNA would prove the guilt of all three men. And it came out later that these DNA tests turned out to be negative. There was no DNA evidence to back up the claim that they had assaulted her that night. The president of Duke University at that time actually took action against the three players, the three lacrosse players. The coach was forced to resign. The remainder of the season was canceled, and the three boys were eventually suspended from Duke University. A year later, in about 2007, they were found innocent and all charges against them were dropped. The head prosecutor, Mike Nafong, ended up being disbarred in June of 2007 for lying in court and withholding DNA evidence that would have proven the three young men's innocence. So he had withheld exculpatory evidence. The three lacrosse players ended up suing the University of Duke, and they settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. One of the players graduated from Duke in 2006. One of them transferred to Brown University, and the other one transferred to Loyola University. So their whole entire school career was heavily affected. Their reputations were destroyed. The university did not stand by their side at all. And public opinion, I think, swayed towards crystal mangum. I think most people were believing crystal mangum. Crystal Mangum right now currently is sitting in prison. She is serving a 14 to 18 year prison sentence for first degree murder and 2 counts of larceny. She was convicted of killing her boyfriend. So I don't know what prompted her to all of a sudden come up out of the blue to say that she was lying 20 something years ago or almost 20 years ago. I have no idea what prompted her to do this, but I guess the guilt was just weighing too heavily on her and she just wanted to come clean. And so, yeah, she said that she completely lied. Now, I did read in the article that she still claims something happened, but she won't talk about exactly what happened, but it wasn't what she had alleged back in 2006. Moving on from there, let's talk about Miss Lily Phillips, y'all. This is a story. So Lily Phillips is a 23-year-old young lady from the UK, and she is also an OnlyFans model. So right now there's currently a documentary of her on, I think it's on YouTube, and this documentary follows her as she attempts to sleep with 100 men in one day. None of the men had agreed to have their faces shown, so I guess you're going to see a lot of blurred images. It shows that the men had more discretion and maybe a little bit more, I don't know what you would call it. They don't want to be associated with this, right? They want to go ahead and do it, but they don't want no one else to know that they did this. Unlike Miss Lily Phillips, she is going to make a name for herself out of this. And she will always be known as the woman who slept with 100 men in one day. Even if she finds a cure for cancer, she will always be known. There will always be a footnote to her name that she is the woman that slept with 100 men in one day to promote her OnlyFans account. So this documentary is produced by the Goon Squad Productions. I think that's a YouTube channel. It said that after everything was said and done, because she did accomplish her goal, she did reach her goal of 100 men in one day, and she said that she could only really remember about 5 to 10 guys. She said that it was all very robotic, and she felt guilty afterwards because she wasn't giving the men the experience that they wanted or that they had paid for. Because she could only give each man about 5 minutes, in order to accomplish her goal, I'm pretty sure she couldn't give them all that they wanted. And maybe they felt like they didn't get all that they paid for. It was only for just 5 minutes. But I'm pretty sure all of this was explained to them and they all understood this before they went into it. So she felt really guilty that she couldn't give them, the experience of their dreams because there was a limitation on time. The men were required to take STI or STD tests, as well as to have their IDs checked, and they also had to sign a release form. One flew all the way from Switzerland. Like I said, it was 5 minutes per man. Some of them were really hardcore fans of hers, of her OnlyFans page, and they have been watching her, or they have been fans of her ever since she started her OnlyFans page. One guy said that he spent about £1,000 for the total experience, when you include travel and hotel stay and food and everything else, and what he had to pay her. It cost him about $1,000. Her next goal, she said, is to be with 1,000 men in one day. So I guess she's going to have to cut down 5 minutes down to what, a minute or two, possibly. And it's like, how much is a man willing to pay to get in line with 1,000 other men just to spend a couple of seconds with this girl? Like, what is the thrill of that? What are the men really getting out of this? Because I'm not in the, I don't know what's going on OnlyFans. I have never seen an OnlyFans account, video, or anything. So I don't know what's going on over there. Is she some type of like a celebrity on OF? Is she like so extremely well known that these men are like, this is on my bucket list to be with Lily Phillips, and she's opening up the door to us, so I got to take this opportunity while I can? Like, what is the thrill and the attraction to spend so much money just for 5 minutes with her? And then your face is blurred, so nobody would know that you ever did it. So like, I'm not understanding at all what the attraction is. I was really shocked when I read this story. And I was even more shocked that her next goal is to be with 1,000 men. Obviously she's doing it for the money, but she needs to get with Larsa Pippen, Scottie Pippen's ex-wife, and also the ex-girlfriend of Michael Jordan's son, because according to Larsa, you don't have to work as hard, honey. You don't have to work as hard. All you got to show is your little pinky toe, and you'll make $10,000 a day, because Larsa Pippen claims that she's getting paid big money on OF just showing her feet. So somebody please pass on Larsa's number to Miss Lily Phillips so she can learn to work smarter and not harder. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video if you like this content, subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.